Norwegian Prima or Royal Caribbean Odyssey of the Seas. This is the decision that I recently had to make. You guys don't know me. I'm new to the scene. I've started a channel. I've been fuddling around with what my concepts are going to be. But the one thing that I know that I love, it's travel. Obviously, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years now, that has been something that I have not been able to do to the extent that I want to. It's been mostly going on domestic trips, some trips to Florida, trips to Tennessee to see the family, nice road trip last year, 3-week trip to Tennessee this year, awaiting the news that would come where vacations and especially cruises would be going back to a little bit of normalcy. And that's where we're at. The last couple of weeks have been pretty amazing for cruise news. A lot of the restrictions, especially the ones that have been holding me back from cruising, are being lifted, are being changed, are being updated and modified daily. 2 weeks ago, as the news started to break, June 18th, the CDC changed their guidelines. And soon after that, rules and guidelines for each of the cruise lines started to change. And we are now at a point where I'm able to make a decision to go on a cruise again. So as I started the video off with, Norwegian Prima or Royal Caribbean Odyssey of the Seas. This decision was not easy to make. And it started off really leaning towards Royal Caribbean. So a little bit of my cruising history. I've been on 15 different cruises. My most loyalty is with Royal Caribbean. I'm an Emerald on their cruise line, but I've also sailed Disney, Carnival, Norwegian, and Celebrity. So I've had plenty of cruises. I've had a nice variety of cruises, and I was just excited to be able to start looking at booking a cruise again. And it really boiled down to a bucket list item of mine. And my bucket list item was, I want to go on a New Year's cruise. I've never done it. I've never been able to make that happen. I've never been able to even kind of consider that. I work retail and I just hadn't really looked at it. Well, there are 2 9-night cruises that were really just tickling my fancy, and that was these 2 ships. So I started to lay out the options. What are my options? What do they look like? What are the itineraries? What are the ships like? And I'll be honest with you, when I first started looking, I was just all in on Odyssey of the Seas. There wasn't even another option out there. The itinerary was awesome. 4 days at sea, 4 port days, stopping at Coco Key, a brand new ship, a ship I was supposed to have sailed on the inaugural sailing, and I missed out obviously because everything was shut down. So I had to cancel out of that one. Well, I didn't have to cancel out of it. I got canceled out of it. So here we are. It's open back up, and I'm itching. I'm itching to get on a Royal Caribbean ship. I'm itching to get on that ship. I'm itching to check out the Seaplex. I'm itching to check out, 270, and I'm missing me a roast beef sandwich. Haven't had one of those. Last cruise I was on was October 2019 on Navigator of the Seas, and I was unable to get that sandwich on that ship. I had a cruise booked on Symphony for May of 2020. Same thing as my Odyssey cruise. So I was all in. I was all in on Odyssey. So Royal Caribbean had initially announced that they were going to make the changes on some of their rules, and then they kind of backtracked on some of those rules. And I don't know if they backtracked or if I jumped ahead on interpreting what some of their rules were, or if they did backtrack. I can't figure it out. Looking at some of the old videos and reading some of the old stuff, it looks like there might have been some wavering. So why don't you guys let me know down in the comments below if you guys have been following this. Did I read the room wrong initially on some of the on some of the restrictions that were changing, or did they announce maybe more of a change than they actually did, or did some of the YouTubers get ahead of what some of the changes were? Or where are we at? I'm just kind of trying to follow this. So let me know in the comments below what happened there. What did I miss, or what did I not miss? So anyway, as I realized that some of the rules weren't where they needed to be in order for me to travel, or to cruise, I should say, I started to research what other options were out there. And I really liked the idea of a 9-night cruise. I loved it. I was like, 9 nights. This is great. I'm going to leave on a Friday. I'm going to come back on Monday. It works out with my schedule well. It's just perfect. The stars aligned for this one. And I was like, I gotta get in on this. I gotta get in on this. So I started to look up what other options. And there was this Norwegian ship I'd never heard of. And I'll be honest with you, over the last 2 years, I really haven't paid much attention to the cruise news. I haven't really been as obsessed with it as I was. There was a point in time where if you would have mentioned to me that you were leaving out of, Los Angeles port on a Saturday on Norwegian, I would have been able to tell you what ship it was without even looking. I mean, you want to talk about obsession? I was obsessed. And I had to back out of that. I had to just get away from it because I wanted so bad for these things to come back that it was kind of almost depressing me that they weren't, and I was not going to be able to cruise. And so as soon as this started to open up, I felt my obsession come back. I felt it grow. I felt the desire. Now I could tell you where Symphony is leaving from, and Wonder, and all these different ships. But Prima was a surprise to me. I'm like, where'd this thing come from? And I started to dig in, some of the venues that were available, and I realized, wow, it's not even sailing it. It's a brand new ship. So this is pretty cool. This is a good option. And I started looking at the different venues, and I started looking into the different food options and what shows are going to be on board, and what do the deck plans look like, and do they have the studio cabins? Do they have the studio lounge? And is this an option for me? And I really started to dig in, and I go, oh, 9 nights. And then I look at this ship and I said, wow, 7 stops, 2 sea days. Talk about being busy. And I reached out to a couple friends, and we start talking back and forth about what are some of these options. And, is Royal going to follow up on some, are they going to follow suit on what Norwegian has announced as far as their rules that are changing, and what's going to be the plan, and what are we going to look like going forward? Are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? And, what do you guys think about 7 stops, in Mexico? We're going to go to Cozumel. We're going to go to Costa Maya. We're going to go to Belize. We're going to go to Grand Cayman. We're going to go to Jamaica. We're going to go to Great Stirrup Cay. Maybe it's 6 stops. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. But anyway, so many stops and a couple of sea days. And I said, this is just insane. This is a great vacation. This is a great return to cruising, brand new ship, great itinerary. Couple stops I've been to, a couple stops I haven't, and just started to dig in, and I started to weigh it out, and I'm watching videos on Odyssey of the Seas, and I'm watching, whatever information I'm digging up on the Norwegian Prima, and I'm seeing that they're going to have game shows, and I can go on there and I can play Price is Right, or I can play the Supermarket Sweep, and I'm going, oh man. And then I'm starting to look at what's the club life going to look like, and what they're planning on doing there, and and then I'm like, well, what are they doing on Royal Caribbean? They got this music hall. What do they got to? And I'm just going back and forth, and ultimately, I make a decision, and I start to stick to it, and I start looking at okay, where do I got to fly to? Where do I have to, what's the difference in flights? And I got to tell you, this was a lot of fun starting to hash out the difference between what would be, either way I went, would be the perfect cruise. There's no doubt about the fact that this would be the perfect cruise. There was Odyssey of the Seas, Prima, whichever one I decided, that's the perfect cruise. I mean, it's over New Year's. It checks off a bucket list. It's a solo cruise. It's what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. It's going to be a just a fantastic itinerary either way. The weather in the Caribbean in January, it's not going to be great, but it's going to be, I live in Northern California. It's going to be better than here, and I'll be on a cruise, and I'll be on the cruise for the first time in almost 3 years, and so back and forth, and I got to tell you. After just a lot of deliberation, Norwegian won out. As far as for a solo cruise, and as far as for the pricing and what you get and what they're including in their package, it was just a hard deal to beat. And not to mention that Norwegian stuck to their guns. They made an announcement about what the rules were going to change. They didn't falter on them. I haven't seen anyone going back and forth. They're kind of just leaning into it. Their CEO, Frank Del Rio, he's saying we're getting back into this, and he's bold, and I mean, he's making some statements that are pissing some people off, but I got to tell you, he's delivering a product right now. And I haven't been on Norwegian since I did Alaska on the Jewel in 2016, but I'm excited to get back on board. I'm excited to see what this new product is going to deliver. I'm excited to see what this new ship is going to be like. I'm excited to hopefully sail with just a category full of solo cruisers. I'm looking forward to making some new memories. I'm looking forward to making the best of this trip that could be made. So as I go through this journey, I'm going to start sharing some of my travels with you guys. I'm going to start sharing maybe some recap videos of some of the stuff that I've done. And it's time for me to get my passion on video. It's time for me to really start talking about this. It's time for me to dive back into one of the few things that just lights my fire. And I got to tell you, these things light my fire. So I'm excited. Subscribe to the channel, make some comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Did I make the right choice? Is Norwegian the right choice? Is the Prima the right choice? Am I making the right choice? I know I'm making the right choice for myself, but I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. And subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button. I'm going to put some regular videos out. We're going to talk about cruising. We're going to talk about some travels, and I'm going to share along with you guys my planning process for the cruise. What are we looking at for drink packages, and what did I get, and what was included in my cruise, and what's going to be added to my cruise? And and I'm just excited. I'm excited to share this journey with you guys, and I look forward to you guys following along as I get back into cruising this year and just start hitting it hard come the next couple years. It's time to start checking some of these bucket list items off the list. All right, guys. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.